High Commissioner. Good afternoon from here and maybe good morning in your place. Her Excellency Baroness Patricia Scotland, Secretary General of the Commonwealth, His Excellency Mr. Hussein Tomasi, Special Advisor to the Justice Minister of the Gambia, esteemed panelists, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. And we also understand that the Honorable Foreign Minister of Bangladesh is joining or has already joined, and also His Excellency Lord Tariq Ahmed, the FCDO Minister. I feel honored to be virtually present at the Commonwealth, the first major international organization that Bangladesh joined in 1972 under the unfailing diplomatic leadership of our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and his unequivocal conviction in the shared Commonwealth values of democracy, human rights, tolerance, rule of law, and justice. I thank today's co-chairs, the High Commissioners of Canada and Bangladesh for organizing this event at the Commonwealth and inviting me as the keynote speaker. I commend the Commonwealth Secretary General, Baroness Scotland, for reaffirming her personal and institutional commitment just now to sustain Commonwealth's engagement and support to human rights, justice, and accountability processes for atrocities committed against the Rohingyas and their sustainable return to Myanmar. I look forward to the participation of FCDO Minister, His Excellency Lord Tariq Ahmed, the UK government, especially Prime Minister Boris Johnson, as the chair in office of the Commonwealth, and earlier in his capacity as Foreign Secretary, not only visited the Rohingya camps in Bangladesh in February 2018, but also played a pivotal role in bringing the Rohingya crisis on the Commonwealth's agenda at the London CHOGM. We thank UK also for taking up the pen-holding role on Myanmar at the Security Council, leading the Security Council joint statement on Myanmar on 11 September 2020 and its delegation to Myanmar and Bangladesh in April 2018. We also appreciate UK's generous humanitarian support to the Rohingyas, and also for organizing or co-hosting the event day after tomorrow for the humanitarian or the pledging conference on the Rohingyas. Bangladesh is indebted to all Commonwealth leaders who in 2018 unanimously called for, and I quote, a halt to all violence in Myanmar's Rakhine state, a restoration of normality and accountability of the perpetrators of gross violations of human rights through an independent investigation, and sustainable return of all displaced Rohingyas to their rightful homes in Myanmar, unquote. I must especially commend a fellow Commonwealth country, the Gambia, for taking an exceptionally bold step seeking provisional measures at the International Court of Justice in November 2019 for ending genocide on the Rohingyas by the state of Myanmar. I recognize the presence of His Excellency Hussein Tomasi here and convey through him to his government that the interim order by the ICJ of the 23rd of January 2020 may have been a small step in delivering justice to the long persecuted Rohingyas, but it was a great leap forward in challenging a culture of impunity there. As the world awaits final outcome of the ICJ case and the ICC proceedings, Bangladesh welcomes the intention of Canada and the Netherlands to intervene in the Gambia versus Myanmar case. Excellencies, as we step into the fourth year of the mass exodus into Bangladesh of nearly 800,000 severely traumatized Rohingyas people fleeing atrocities and persecution in Myanmar's northern Rakhine state, I feel it is important to give a brief account of exactly where do we stand today with the Rohingya crisis. To begin with, we must reflect on why did Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina demonstrate such extraordinary courage and compassion in August 2017 and open up our borders to the Rohingyas, the world's fastest and the largest forced population displacement in less than 3 months. This is because in 1971, during our own War of Liberation, more than 10 million Bengali refugees also fled our homeland, taking temporary shelter in India in fear of similar atrocities, genocide, rape, and war crimes as faced by the Rohingyas. For Bangladesh, it was therefore a moral, ethical, and humanitarian decision to stand beside any persecuted community, whether in the neighborhood or beyond, as was deliberated at the 73rd UNGA by Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, and I quote, "I can feel the pain and suffering of countless people around the world, persecuted and expelled from their homes like the Rohingya. It is impossible to build peaceful, just, and sustainable societies by ignoring such situations. As a fellow human, we can neither ignore nor remain silent about the plight of the Rohingya." Unquote. Excellencies, the Rohingya crisis is certainly not an outstanding bilateral issue between Bangladesh and Myanmar. We became independent in 71 and they became independent in 1948. In fact, the two countries have amicably settled our land boundary immediately after our independence and maritime boundary also in 2013, all in the spirit of good neighborliness. The Rohingya crisis is born of Myanmar's internal minority issue. Twice before, in 1978 and 1992, Myanmar's Rohingya problem spilled over into Bangladesh when Myanmar perpetrated mass atrocities against its own minority Rohingya community who fled into Bangladesh en masse and compelled Bangladesh to get involved in sending them back to Myanmar. In 1978 and 1992, Myanmar indeed took back almost all its Rohingya, recognizing Rohingyas as lawful residents of Myanmar and members of the Myanmar society. However, in 2017, what Bangladesh and the world witnessed in Myanmar's northern Rakhine state, and from hearing firsthand accounts of Rohingya who escaped atrocities like mass killings, rape, torture, arson, etc., was a violation of a global proportion. According to UN Human Rights Chief, it was a textbook case of ethnic cleansing, and as per UN fact-finding mission, a pre-planned, well-coordinated, state-endorsed policy aimed at the Rohingya population in the name of so-called clearance operation. The Rohingya crisis, involving around 1 million forcibly displaced Rohingyas, 70% women and children, is no longer Myanmar's internal issue. It is one of the gravest caseloads of international forced displacements with proven crimes of genocide targeted against one ethnic group, subject to racial discrimination, marginalization, and forced statelessness by their own state that systematically took away their political, economic, socio-cultural, and citizenship rights. Excellencies, for Bangladesh, voluntary and urgent repatriation of our 1 million forcibly displaced Rohingyas is a top national priority. Immediately after the 2017 influx, Bangladesh sat with Myanmar and on November 23, 2017, signed 3 bilateral instruments, including arrangement of return of displaced persons from Rakhine State. The arrangement focuses on return of the forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals who entered Bangladesh in 2016 and 2017 through a verification process. Returns are conditional upon restoration of normalcy in Rakhine State by Myanmar, creation of basic conditions for lives and livelihoods of the Rohingyas, as well as voluntariness. Bangladesh already handed over a list of nearly 600,000 Rohingyas. Till date, Myanmar verified only a few thousand Rohingyas. In 2018 and 2019, Bangladesh tried 2 mutually agreed repatriation efforts. But each time when repatriation dates were fixed, fresh violence broke out on the other side of the Naf River, creating panic and mistrust amongst returnee Rohingya families. They lost confidence to return and handed to UNHCR a 13-point demand that Myanmar must fulfill with accountable and transparent guarantee as a precondition to return. Since February 2020, bilateral consultations are stalemated due to utter reluctance of Myanmar. Ladies and gentlemen, you would be surprised to know that the 13-point demands of the Rohingyas that Bangladesh already communicated to Myanmar are not only key challenges to voluntary repatriation, but also mirror recommendations of various international justice and accountability mechanisms on Myanmar. They vindicate today's theme that without ensuring justice and accountability for the Rohingyas, their sustainable return to Myanmar remains a far cry. Among the top 5 key conditions of the Rohingyas are, first, a guarantee for an end to their statelessness, more certainty in citizenship, and the rejection of the national verification card that would degrade their status to foreigners. A revision of Myanmar's 1982 citizenship law to recognize Rohingyas as an ethnic minority of Myanmar was a critical recommendation of the Kofi Annan Commission report and also UN fact-finding missions. Myanmar has not complied with either recommendation till date. Second, a guarantee for safety and security of the Rohingyas on their return to NRS and no more torture and killing. Guaranteeing safety, security, and protection of Rohingyas are key measures the ICJ Provisional Order asks Myanmar to guarantee and key purpose of UN Secretary General's global ceasefire appeal under Security Council Resolution 2532 directed at Myanmar military and government. However, as of today, Myanmar blatantly continues to disregard both with more clearance operations on 11 September 2020, flouting UN Secretary General's ceasefire call and Security Council joint statement. Myanmar military amassed troops along the Bangladesh-Myanmar border, leaving Rohingyas in Bangladesh camps in a state of fresh panic. Third, a guarantee for lifting restrictions on freedom of movement and livelihood activities of the Rohingyas on return to NRS. The Kofi Annan Commission and Special Rapporteur on Myanmar both called for lifting of all restrictions on Rohingyas, freedom of movement, access to education, health, livelihoods, and equal opportunities as Rakhines. Till today, Myanmar keeps all Rohingyas in IDPs and denies all rights of Muslims in NRS. Fourth, a guarantee that returnee Rohingyas will not be entrapped in the IDP camps and get back their damaged land and properties. This is precondition of Bangladesh-Myanmar bilateral arrangement on returns too. Unfortunately, Myanmar has allegedly already changed the landscape and demography of Rakhine state by reassigning Rohingya villages to new entities and erasing Rohingyas' ancestral properties. Even UN's mapping unit left out Rohingya villages in the UN maps. Fifth, a guarantee by Myanmar for bringing perpetrators of crimes already committed on the Rohingyas to justice and accountability. The ICJ Provisional Order measures and UN fact-finding mission both found acts of genocide in Myanmar and called for accountability. But Myanmar government has not brought to justice their military and security forces who committed 2017 clearance operations. The provisional measures by ICJ also failed to entail any positive change in the mindset and approach of Myanmar. Myanmar continues restoring to falsification, misrepresentation of facts, unsubstantiated claims, and unjustifiable blame on Bangladesh to deny its own obligations and thereby misguide the international community. The world witnessed yet another round of such efforts on the part of Myanmar during the 75th General Assembly of the UNGA this year. Myanmar also neither complied with the Security Council Presidential Statement 2017/2020 or the joint EU, OIC, UNGA or HRC resolutions that calls for creating conditions conducive to the safe, voluntary, sustainable and dignified return of Rohingyas to their places of origin in Myanmar and ensuring them justice. Excellencies, in summary, rights, justice and accountability issues raised by the Rohingyas must be addressed by the government of Myanmar and international justice and accountability mechanisms before they can expect Rohingyas to return voluntarily from Bangladesh. That brings me to my concluding thoughts for today. Firstly, Bangladesh will continue to bilaterally engage with Myanmar in good faith, in all earnest, and try to bring back on track the dialogue for Rohingya demands and sustainable returns as trust-building measures. The key to sustainable returns of Rohingyas are in the hands of Myanmar government, who can make or break the current impasse in returns. Secondly, Myanmar has defied Commonwealth leaders' call for a halt to all violence in Myanmar's Rakhine state and accountability of perpetrators through independent investigation. At Kigali, a historic name associated with seeking justice for victims of genocide, Bangladesh calls for a declaration on justice and accountability for the Rohingyas. I hope Chair in Office Britain and Chair Designate Rwanda would consider that. Thirdly, Bangladesh calls upon influential regional actors like ASEAN, India, China, and Japan to come forward to engage Myanmar to find durable solutions for the Rohingya returns for the sake of regional peace, security, and stability. Fourthly, all international mechanisms must take tougher actions on Myanmar's compliance of UN Security Council and ICJ provisions for Rohingya justice, accountability, voluntary returns. Fifthly, the global community supporting accountability and justice for Rohingyas include media, civil society, Rohingya rights groups, jurists, lawyers, academia. All must continue campaigns and collective response to ensure accountability by the ICJ and ICC. Finally, over the past 3 years, Bangladesh has been doing its best to shelter 1 million FDMNs in good faith, of course, with the international community's help. However, I must remind the international community that Bangladesh has no intention or capacity to bear this unfair and unjust burden any longer, while the international community allows complete impunity to Myanmar's human rights failures, discriminatory practices, and genocide towards Rohingya minority. Thank you all.
I thank